Okay, this next part's going to be a little echoey. I apologize. I'm in my kitchen here in Portugal. So I'm in a little town called Vila Moura, which is, I would say, about an hour west of Faro. So about little over 2 hours south of Lisbon, the capital. We haven't been in this place before. I wanted to be close to the water, close to the beach, warmer temperatures, because we all know what the winter is like right now back in Canada. So I wanted to get away from anything that remotely looked like snow. So just like our very first trip here to Portugal, I wanted to come back to a place where we can kind of relax and zone out. And the very first time we came, for mostly economic reasons, because it was our first trip over here, we opted for almost like an apartment. They call it self-catering units. So it does have a little kitchen or anything in it. And they're really economical. And usually we're not huge breakfast eaters. We don't need the breakfast buffet. We don't need the big B&B. We basically need a bed, some place to have coffee, maybe a fridge to store a few things in, bed to sleep in, usual. Maybe even a TV on occasion, especially for rainy days like we had yesterday. So we took a drive. Today it was probably almost an hour from here to the little town of Portimão, which is the place where we went the first time. So it's kind of like going back to the old days of having, we got to see the same little shopping center that we always went to get groceries. We kind of remember which streets. We recognize gas stations. It's been built up quite a bit because I'm figuring it's been almost 10 years since we've been there. But Praia da Rocha is the main beach in that area. And it's just stunning. So I've posted video on a couple little clips on my Instagram feed. If you're not following me on Instagram yet, it is Stephanie L. Pichet for that one, because there's many Stephanie Pichets in the world, believe it or not. And so make sure you can follow along. There's a couple little videos. I'm going to post a few little more maybe in the show notes for this episode as well. So just to get, I think I did a fantastic panorama picture. It kind of did like a 360. So I'm not sure how that's going to upload onto the website yet, but I'm going to figure it out if it kills me. But anyways, it's a beautiful shot. And the water was crashing, and you can see all the rock cliffs. It was just stunning. It was a lot of fun just to go back and kind of bring back those memories, and realizing we didn't really appreciate that style of vacation that we had the first time. We've always just sort of stayed in regular hotels and resorts and everything since then. So going back and feeling what it's like again to go to the grocery store inspired us enough that instead of, we already had a fun Portuguese style lunch this afternoon. It was a little bit late. And because the weather's been kind of icky, and going out for dinner or lunches or whatever are fun, but it's just as much fun to go shopping and make your own. So if you saw on any of the social media feeds last night that yes, I kind of cooked up some shrimp for Norm, and we had sort of cheese and meats and things that we found just at a local corner store of all places. But tonight, for tonight and tomorrow night, our last 2 nights here, we did a bit of shopping. And if you're watching this on the YouTube video, you'll notice that I have a bit of stuff in front of me. But I'll go through a quick description for those of you who are listening via the podcast. So yes, there's a lot of wine. I didn't do too bad. I was on a hunt for a specific unique grape varietal. So all of my little wine snobs, wine nerds, whatever you like to call ourselves, there's a grape that's from Portugal called Sousa, spelled S-O-U-S-A, with that little accent. I'm sure there's a special name for it, I keep forgetting, with the little wavy symbol over top of the A-O. So if you want to do searches on winesearcher.com or other places that you want to look for wines, there's a couple of stores, and I think in the States, that carry it. If anyone you know is traveling over here to Portugal, there is one store in Lisbon that is carrying something with that grape in it. And then of course, because it's from the Douro Valley area, up in the city of Porto, so anyone going up in that area will have much more likely to find it. So it's not just rare. I went to 3 or 4 different wine stores while I was here today, and all of them basically said the same thing. Oh, that's very unique. Oh, that's hard to find. I thought, well, I'm here in Portugal. I didn't think it was going to be that hard to find. At home, yes. Here, no. But I did find the one last bottle. So it is a 2010. So this one I'm taking home for myself. I'm very excited about it because it's a super dark, it's fruity and dry, but big mouthfeel on it. This is one of those wines that needs with a big, I don't know, I would say a big, deep meat dish of some sort. And they don't really do a lot of huge meat dishes here in Portugal. So I'll have to do some research on what specifically is probably the best dish to pair with it. But when I do figure that out, I will let you know. But I had it on my own, you know, with some cheeses and apps and everything when I was in Lisbon, actually, last time I was here, and it was spectacular. So I went looking for it. If you like deep, dark wines, if you remember from my episode I was talking about the Chilean wines, the, can't believe I'm thinking about it, Purple Angel is from Montes. It would be similar in weight and kind of similar in style, but it's got a completely different taste to it. Anyways, I fell in love with it, so I'm very excited. Also, of course, I wouldn't be leaving Portugal without port, of course. So I not only bought some, couple of good vintage ones, some 2012 I think we bought. Norm bought one for a special year of 1998. That's the year he started his business. And couldn't bring myself to buy a 1971. It's about 200 euros a bottle. We're already going to be having to check another suitcase already. So I thought, not a good idea. But I did treat myself to a bottle of white port. So for those of you who like port, but sometimes you find it might be a little bit too strong, white port is traditionally what you would have prior to a meal. And then, of course, the traditional, the tawnies or rubies are what you would have after dinner. So the white port's a little lighter in style, for those of you who are watching the video. So it's colored closer to this. Isn't that a beautiful box? It's going to be a little lighter in style, a little bit less dry. So, no, actually a little drier probably than what you would expect. So tawny, even the tawny wines are a little bit, port wines are a little bit sweeter. This one's basically meant for, it's a lighter in style, kind of gets your palate going. I really love that, nice and crisp and cold prior to a dinner when I'm here. So I wanted to bring back a good bottle for myself. And a couple of little giveaways and gifts for people when we get home as well. And then of course a couple of blends. I am not sure if I have, you'll have to check my schedule if I'm doing a class or tasting on Portuguese wines this season. If I'm not, I might actually squeeze it in very soon. Hoping to, one of the things about Portuguese wines is they're a little more difficult and complicated to learn. There are more grape varietals that grow in this country based on the size of the country than anywhere else in the world. And they try to use many of them. So they're mostly blends. There's a couple of bigger ones out there. Torriga Nacional is one of the bigger ones. But they tend to do a lot of different blends. And there's a couple of big producers, as always, that you would probably see back in Canada or North America. I'm going to list some of my favorites, some of the bigger brand names to look for if you want to sample some of the Portuguese wines. But just like I always say, even about the Spanish wines, they're probably some of the best value. And one of the predictions, if you listen to our episode from last week, 2018 is all about obscure or unfamiliar smaller wine regions. So if Spanish wines are going to be big again this year, then things like Portuguese wines, maybe particular regions that you're not familiar with. Basically, it's a matter of trying something new. So don't forget, our theme for this year is #OneNewThing. So this might be an opportunity for you to pick up a bottle of Portuguese red wine to give it a try. There are some really great whites out there. Again, they're all blends. You're looking for something maybe from the Alentejo region. There's a couple of, that's probably one of the most common ones. But again, I'll post a couple on the show notes. And as always, the show notes are going to be at stephaniepichet.ca/flavor22. So a couple of the things that I found when we were there, just going to grocery stores. I'll post some pictures in the photo gallery in the show notes as well. But they had this, I went to this grocery store today that is called Apollonia. And their tagline is the real supermarket. And this was an old town called Lagoa. And it's probably between here and Portimao, so basically on our way back. And one of the reasons I went there was to go and find that Susau wine that I was talking about earlier. And one of the guys in the wine store said, oh, you need to go to a fancy supermarket, and they have one in Lagoa. And I couldn't remember the name of it, but when I just looked up supermarkets, this one was rated really well. But they actually have a reception desk as opposed to an information desk. The gentlemen are wearing suits at this reception desk. Their wine section is basically like the size of an LCBO, a standard one that you'd find at home. They have beautiful locked cabinets with all of some of the wines that all of you extreme wine lovers, Sassicaia is there, DRC is there, all of them are in these beautiful glass cases. So just about anything you can think of is there. So the fact that I managed to find one bottle of Susau in that entire thing, I was thrilled. But we also picked up those other things there too. However, they do have, I checked just on a hunch, checked through this little cooking section. So if you're not a big wine lover and you're kind of thinking, oh, well, she get over the wine stuff, I went through the cookware aisle, which would be if you went to like a superstore or something and they had, they usually have a few pots and pans, maybe cookie sheets or something. Well, this one had, everyone else is always looking for this, and even my little hometown kitchen bit store, which I love, she has a hard time finding these too. So this is a cataplana. So if you're not watching the video and you're listening to this in the podcast, try to either look up cataplana. It's spelled Cataplana. It is not just the name of the vessel that this dish is cooked in, but it's also basically the name of the style of the food. So you'll find that there's a lot of cataplana with something. So cataplana with mixed seafood, cataplana pork and clams. Basically just means that it's cooked in this thing. So if you're not watching this on the video, essentially it looks kind of like a wok shape on the bottom, and it's exactly the same on the top, and it's like a shell thing. There's two latches on either side, and then the handles open up. So essentially it's like its own little steam thing. They used to be made out of copper at one time, and and I do have one from my very first trip here in Portugal that I brought back. Yes, for packing it's a little tricky because it's quite large, but you just put clothes and stuff in it on the way home. Works every time. The copper ones are gorgeous. They're not usually too big for, you can barely find little large ones. Even some of the stores down in Toronto, I've kept asking around for them. Everyone's making these stainless steel versions. You can even probably find, if you hunted around for them, ones with a non-stick interior. I did find one at this store. They had one of each left, but the latches weren't really great on the non-stick ones, so I went with traditional heavy-duty stainless steel. So I think this one's going to last me a while. This one will probably serve a good 4 people with each use. The smaller ones that I have, or the smaller one that I have, would probably be great for 2 people. So essentially, there's like a lot of tomato base to it. You basically make the sauce, and then you put in, if you're going to do any kind of pork or meats, you put that in with the sauce. And just before that's done is when you start layering in all the seafood, and you keep latching it up in between. So I'm gonna go and grab my cataplana recipe, and I'll post it in the show notes too, because I think even if you didn't want to try, or if you don't have a cataplana like this, essentially if you tried a covered Dutch oven or a covered pot, it'll work basically the same way. It just doesn't have the big ta-da when you can bring this thing right out onto, trim it onto your dining table and just lift the latches, because that's exactly the way that I had it the first time, and I think it makes all the difference when you have the showpiece. So that, and price-wise, this one here is about 55 euros for this one at the grocery store. So you may be able to find one in smaller markets. If you're living in any of the bigger centers and you have any stores that are Portuguese grocery stores, or if you have a Portuguese area in your city, just ask any of the locals and they'll be able to kind of point you in the direction of where they would get a cataplana. Anyone who is Portuguese knows what a cataplana is, so you can find that. And if you have been listening to the podcast and you listen to the Christmas gift ideas one of the gift suggestions that I mentioned on there was a cheese curler. And what are the odds that I find one here in Portugal for 15 euros? I don't remember how much the prices were, I'll have to check on that, but if you ever wanted to get one of those cheese curlers, essentially you put a block of cheese in the top and it's got a pretty little dome on it, and there's a spike that goes up the center of the cheese, And there's a little curling device at the top that will actually just peel off curls of cheese as you want them. So it's kind of fancy for cheese plates, buffets, that kind of thing, if you do a lot of that kind of entertaining. If you want to pick one up through Amazon.com, I have a direct link on the gift ideas show notes, and I will put a link in this show notes as well, so you don't have to go browsing around the site. So for tonight, that's basically it. We're doing crackers and olive oil, and we got a really fresh baguette and two couple different cheeses. Norm found it's almost like a salami, but it's actually made out of, we got this at the farmer's market today, along with some fresh clementines and local pears, believe it or not. Citrus is still growing really well down here. It's figs, almond, and honey that's created into a little salami. So I thought that'd be fun for a little cheese board, and he bought some, this is some kind of a, I managed to find guacamole. And what else did he buy here? We're looking at it, looks like a pesto. Oh, black olive and mushroom paste. Nice. And it's 100% vegan. Not that we're going vegan, but it looked good anyways. So you got a bunch of stuff like that and little snacks. We're basically downloading a bunch of stuff, or I've already downloaded stuff on my iPad, and we're just going to call it a night because we have one more day here, and we're going to Albufeira, which is, again, probably about 35-40 minutes from here, and it's only one of the other major towns in this area that we have not visited yet. So hopefully I'll be able to take some last minute notes. Make sure you follow along on Instagram for the up-to-date pictures and stuff, stories with the 24-hour things. So sometimes pictures that aren't pretty enough, I think, to put on Instagram, I'll go ahead and post them through the stories feed. I will include some of my favorite shots in the show notes for this episode as well. When I get back, we're going to be in transit, of course, from Friday to Saturday. So I'm probably going to be finishing up this editing of this episode tomorrow so that I can have it up ready to go. So it'll show up on your usual time slot of 9 a.m. Eastern Standard Time on Saturday. I'll be on my way back into town by then, getting ready for my first cooking class of 2018 back in Sudbury, which is on Monday evening. So if you're listening to this from the Sudbury area, I think I want to say a couple seats left. Don't quote me on that, but it's my Moroccan class, which will be a lot of fun, which is not that far from here, actually. But anyways, the Moroccan class will be coming up on Monday. I'm also taping my interview with my cruising champions, my super cruisers, like to call them. So that'll be a little bonus episode coming up this week. And then I'm with the gang of four is back together on this Friday for taping, and I'm going to share one of these bottles with them just to give them a taste of Portugal, just to say that I'm happy to be home, and we're going to be having some not great things like wine and cheese and everything else, and then we're going to be talking about what the new Canada Food Guide is actually dictating that how we should be eating as Canadians for 2018 and beyond. So well, I'm sure that we'll not all agree on whether we like the new food guide or not, but does it really matter? Anyways, once again, the show notes are at stephaniepichet.ca/flavor22 for this episode. And if you have ever wanted to come to Portugal and you are kind of nervous about where to start, I would really suggest you take a look at the latest blog post on the website. I put in a detail, I'll give you a quick little briefing on 3 of my favorite cities to get started in. What I would recommend is if you've never been here before, the easiest way to do it if you're concerned about language or anything else is actually coming down here to the Algarves area. The beaches are fantastic. Again, I'm here in January, so it can't be that bad. And as much as we flew directly to Faro from Toronto, I would suggest if you're going to be using a car to be driving around here anyways, basically get your flight to Lisbon, rent a car. You only need a small one. Highways are fantastic and easy to navigate, and it's about 2 hours to Faro and same direction all the way through, so you can probably go to any of the towns from here. Rent yourself a little apartment like I did and get yourself to shopping. There's some fantastic markets, especially in Cortera, where we were this morning. I also posted a couple of pictures and videos on social media as well, if you want to take a look at that. But I mean, it was a Wednesday. There was huge markets and music, and it was beautiful. So I really, I always encourage people, especially if they're first time coming over to Europe and they're concerned that it's going to be a little bit too pricey for them to come over here. They've never traveled to Europe before. It's surprisingly much cheaper than you would expect. And I don't want to give you an entire tour just because we are staying in here, but just for a finale, for those of you who are watching the video, I will put a bonus video of a little walking tour of this kitchen and apartment that we have. So we were in a 1-bedroom suite downstairs, and the Wi-Fi wasn't really good, but we managed to get this fantastic 2-bedroom. So one of the rooms is now kind of like our dressing room, keep our suitcases and stuff in. We have 2 bathrooms, which is fantastic. Anyone who goes on holidays and gets to have their own bathroom is a happy person, as far as I'm concerned. Balconies that we can sit out and have coffee in the morning. And all around, it's been and a big living room for us to lounge in with a sectional and TV, and it's been quite the luxurious vacation, I have to admit. Anyways, enough of me jammering. Thanks for listening, or thanks for watching if you're watching this on YouTube, and I will see you when I'm back in Canada. Grab yourself a bottle of wine. Try something Portuguese for a change. Have a great one.